Today on the Blockchain Report, Bitcoin's holding around 105K, Trump declares himself the crypto president, Zuck's under fire for secret stablecoin moves, and Bitcoin's hyper pre-sale is popping off with Solana tech and sketchy sounding APIs. Plus, Nico from Simply Bitcoin joins us today. All this and more on today's show. Let's go! Good morning, my Bitcoin people, and welcome to your Friday fix of blockchain banter, fiat fatigue, and hopium-laced headlines right here on the Blockchain Report. I'm your host, Hank Hudson, beaming in from the beautiful disaster that is San Francisco, where coffee shops double as co-working spaces, your Uber driver is pitching an NFT project, and rent costs more than your therapist and your gambling habit combined. It's Friday, thank the good Lord, which means the markets are coasting into the weekend. Your DMs are full of token pre-sales that definitely aren't scams. And there's a 64% chance that your DeFi yield farm rugged you while you were sleeping. But hey, decentralization, baby. Now, obliterate that like button like it's charging you gas fees for breathing, and make sure you're locked in with RoxomTV and me at Hank at RoxomTV across TikTok, YouTube, Instagram, and X, where we unpack every ETF rumor, altcoin tantrum, and influencer rug pull like it's the Zapruder film for finance bros. But before we dive head first in today's beautifully chaotic blender of narratives, noise, and borderline federal crimes, let's take a look at the markets and find out whether we're moonwalking toward generational wealth or crab walking into another painfully slow motion disaster dressed up as a healthy consolidation. It's time for this morning's market rundown. All right, let's see how the numbers are looking this AM. Please be okay, and they are not. Okay, not a great start this morning, but let's see. The day is early. Right now, Bitcoin hovering right beneath that 105K mark. We saw a little bit of a dip last night, but we're slowly inching our way back. We'll talk more about that in just a little bit. Ethereum been cannibalized a little bit the last 24 hours, down nearly 4 or 5%, all the way back to that 2,500 mark. We thought we were finally going to eclipse that $2,800 level that we had been kind of hoping for a while. However, the numbers had other plans for us. So it is. Next up, we have XRP. They're down 2.5 percentage points this morning. Cardano's down 4.5%. And Dogecoin is down as well, hovering right around that 17.5 cents level. Not a great morning in crypto price-wise, but we do have a lot of good news later, so make sure you stay tuned while we get into that. In the stock market, kind of the same. Not looking great this Friday. Right now, the Dow Jones is down about 500 points. The NASDAQ is down nearly a percentage point. The S&P is down about $42. MicroStrategy is down about $4.50. Not a big dip. I mean, as we always say, where Bitcoin goes, MicroStrategy is sure to follow. Tesla sitting at around 318. Coinbase down almost 2% this morning. Nvidia down almost 2%. And GameStop up about 3%, but it was a bloodbath for GameStop yesterday. They reported less than they expected on their earnings call, and they just came out saying they're going to be buying even more Bitcoin than expected. And Wall Street, well, they didn't love it yet, but they're all the way down to $22 after sitting around $30 yesterday. We're going to take a quick break, but as soon as we come back, we're jumping into this morning's bull run, and we have a very exciting interview with Simply Bitcoin's own Nico this morning, so stay tuned. We'll be right back.
Security matters. Zappo Bank, the only way to bank your Bitcoin. Apply now at zappobank.com.
And welcome back to this morning's deep dive, and we've got an exciting one for you, gang. So I want your wallets out and attention up, because today's guest is the reason that your favorite Bitcoin meme now comes with production value. He's a serial entrepreneur, a content machine, a mining mind, and the co-founder of Simply Bitcoin, aka the most watched Bitcoin news show in the world, aka the reason your normie cousin finally stopped asking about Ethereum. He's interviewed senators, CEOs, and probably a few people who still think Dogecoin is funny. He's spoken at Bitcoin Atlantis, BitBlock Boom, and more conferences than there are BRC20 tokens that nobody asked for. He's also the founder of BitVault, an advisor to more Bitcoin startups than I can count, and somehow still finds time to evangelize cold storage like it's the second coming. Basically, if Satoshi and Joe Rogan had a content baby and raised it on beef and censorship resistance, it would probably look a lot like today's guest. Please give a big blockchain report welcome to Nico Moran of Simply Bitcoin. Nico, welcome to the show. They are excited to have you. How are you this morning, my friend?
Yo, dude, what a professional intro. I mean, dude, that was absolutely
connection there. How are you?
That was absolutely fire, bro. What an amazing intro. I'm humbled, dude. Like the preparation, if Joe Rogan and someone else had a baby, it would be a Bitcoin content creation machine. This, that, bing, bang, boom. That was amazing, dude. That was great. I'm so happy to be on. Thank you so much for having me.
Oh, it's such a pleasure. And you earned the nice intro, so that's all you, brother. I was just trying to live up to all the cool things you've done so far. I mean, you have had a really amazing journey, and I know our audience is just itching to learn more about it. Maybe we should get into that a little bit to start. Does that sound good?
Yeah, absolutely. Wherever you want to start, man.
Yeah, so it seems like, and correct me if I'm wrong, you are a bit of a serial entrepreneur. You're really into the whole entrepreneurship lane. How bad was it in hindsight, and how good has it become after, I'm sure, your own trials and tribulations as any entrepreneur seems to undergo?
Dude, first of all, that's an excellent question. So yeah, man, I mean, I tell this to my co-founder all the time. Like, if we knew how painful it was going to be starting Simply, it's almost 5 years ago. If we knew when we started, I think we would have probably, second guessed the whole endeavor. But I think because we had a little bit of naivety and, we just fundamentally wanted to be content creators and YouTubers, that kind of allowed us to not see any of the trial and tribulations that were on the road. I know you guys recently experienced this too with, a deplatforming and stuff. That's scary as hell as a content creator, because, that's like your whole business rides on that. And you kind of have to go through that. And then, of course, dealing with partners, making it a working business model. Actually, because one thing is content creation, one thing is making it into an actual business, and learning all of that along the way while simultaneously growing an audience is way harder than I ever thought it was going to be. And then not to mention the politics that you kind of have to deal with along the way that no one ever tells you about. Right. So, if I would have told myself this 5 years ago, I would have been a little bit more hesitant to start it. But looking back, I'm super, super happy of what we've been able to accomplish at Simply Bitcoin. And, I'm bullish on our future. Let's see where it goes.
Yeah, man. Honestly, I think that naivete, early on, is almost kind of like an unintentional superpower, because you can overanalyze things, and then accomplishing all that you have almost feels insurmountable when you're at step one, right? But you need to just have that passion and that drive, despite all of the obvious obstacles that you're going to encounter. And it sounds like it served you well, man. So you're an inspiration to everybody, especially here at Roxom, as we're kind of doing our own thing, and you really paved the trail for us. So we appreciate that. Now, your resume was interesting. I was checking out your LinkedIn. I was stalking it a little bit, because that's what I do. I'm a LinkedIn lurker. And it includes a lot. I mean, we're talking real estate, e-commerce, cold storage, media, and seafood. What's the through line here, or are you just collecting business models like NFTs at this point?
That's a, I love that line. So yeah, man, I mean, I think as an entrepreneur, you kind of just have to, you have to like fail as fast as possible so you learn what not to do. And then, like, what a lot of people underestimate is you only need one thing to work, right? So if
Right.
you just continue to iterate on ideas or business models, uh, the vast majority of the reality is statistically they're going to fail. But eventually you're going to have one that works out. Like I've never met an entrepreneur in my life that hasn't succeeded in one way or the other. That doesn't mean that every entrepreneur is going to be a billionaire. But what I'm trying to say is like, if they keep at it, whether it takes 2 years or whether it takes 10 years, eventually they're going to find some level of success. So that was basically my early career. So I started in commercial real estate. Then I started a stone crab company here in South Florida. And then I joined Swan Bitcoin for about a year because I wanted a little bit of the corporate experience. I never had a traditional background education. So, and I've never been with inside like a high speed startup. So I wanted that experience. I led their YouTube content strategy for a year. I made them the most watched Bitcoin only channel of 2023 or 2024 when there was no Bitcoin only content. So that was cool. And then I quit Swan. I went full time simply in the beginning of 2024. Yeah, and it's been a hell of a ride. I was into mining for a little bit as well. That was interesting. I wish I would have stuck to it. But hindsight's 2020. But yeah, man, I mean, I'm happy where I'm at and super, super grateful for our audience and our partners that support us.
Heck yeah, brother. And you actually and I have a little bit of some nice similarities here. I used to be in commercial RE too, and I used to be in mining back in the day too. And like you, I wish I would have stayed in it a little bit longer, but my operation was a little sketch, so I didn't want to get in trouble. I want to talk a little bit about how Bitcoin first entered your life. Like, how long ago was it when you were probably like most of us initially, fighting it first and being like, this sounds sketchy, and then you do the research, and then you're all in, kind of like the rest of us. What was your journey into Bitcoin like?
Yeah, it's an excellent question. So I, like a lot of us, I didn't like the where I was at in my life at the time. I didn't like my kind of employment situation. I, wasn't doing so hot economically, and I was actually living at my friend's apartment in Brickell in Miami, and he was kind enough to just, he lived in Ecuador most like full time, and he just basically said like, look, you could stay at my apartment and basically on a subsidized rent rate. Like I would have never been able to afford it normally. And I was just like desperate looking for kind of career opportunities and, like looking around, see, oh, what can I do with my life? And I had a cousin come visit me from Venezuela. And that's originally where my family's from. And he was just like, yo, Nico, like, you know, what like what are you doing? I was like, oh, this is what I'm doing. I'm like, what are you doing? And he's like, so I have these like magic internet machines that are just like making money. And I'm like, what are you talking about? And that's like what started like my rabbit hole journey into Bitcoin. So I sold everything I had, borrowed money from my mom, borrowed money from my ex, jumped on a plane, went to Venezuela, and just started learning from him and my uncle who had a mining facility there at the time. And that was like my first foray into the Bitcoin industry. And it was just wild, man. It was the Wild West back then. I mean, 2016 was a whole different era. The only content you can find online, which was actually a big motivation as to why I started simply, the only Bitcoin only content online that you can find was basically Max and Stacy with the Kaiser Report and Andreas Antonopoulos. That's it. And Tone Vays. Like nothing else existed. Like there was a lot of like, like more like crypto shows and all that, but there was nothing really that was like focused on Bitcoin. So yeah, man, it's been a wild roller coaster ride, but it's totally been worth it.
Is that what made you start Simply Bitcoin then? It's just there were a couple outlets out there, like the ones you mentioned, but you just didn't feel like they were honing in on the way you wanted to cover Bitcoin, or what was the real inspiration there? Because you really have your own unique lane that's clearly catching on with people all over the world. So What kind of brought you to that particular path and how you choose to coverage Bitcoin that makes you different than everyone else out there right now?
Yeah, so that's an excellent question. So in Bitcoin 2021, I was fortunate enough to get invited to speak on the main stage, and I was like shaking. I was so nervous. I never had any type of public speaking experience, and much less any type of audience. And I was backstage, and I never forget. I saw Alex Gladstein, and I went up to him, and I was like, "Hey, man, I've never done this before. Like, do you have any advice?" And he just looks at me like dead in the eye, and he says, "Not that many people have," and he just walks away. And like that makes me even more nervous. But before my panel, it was super famous because they played a recording of Ross Ulbricht, and it gave me goosebumps, and it made me realize as to why I was there. Like, okay, we have a mission, we're on the mission, and we do that panel. And one of the things that I said went viral. It was actually quoted in the Financial Times, and I said, if you're against Bitcoin toxicity, you're against Bitcoin. If you're against Bitcoin, you're against freedom. Whole audience went crazy. Like Rolling Stones mentioned it, Financial Times. And on that stage, I made the case for Simply Bitcoin. I said, listen, guys, we're going to take all the tools and tricks from a lot of these other channels, and we're going to apply it to Bitcoin only content. Mind you, Simply Bitcoin had 400 subscribers at the time. Fast forward, 2021 to 2025, we're, at 90K, on the verge of hitting 100K within the next month or two. So yeah, I mean, I guess it worked. I don't know. But that was kind of the theory, right? Because there was really no one else kind of using, YouTube tactics. Like Andreas would just post his lectures. Like Max and Stacy, as much as I love them and they're a huge inspiration for me, and we stand on the shoulders of giants, they were essentially making show for traditional legacy media, and it was structured in that form. But there was really no one else making kind of YouTube style content for Bitcoin. So we kind of paved the way on that. And then it kind of exploded across the industry. I brought it to Swan, built their entire content strategy. Of course, been building it at Simply, and contributed a little bit to BTC Sessions channel as well. So yeah, it's been a wild ride.
Amazing. And it sounds like you crushed your first time on stage if you're getting published by all these other outlets. Was that kind of the point where you felt like Simply Bitcoin maybe started to take off on its own, to where you were like, wow, people are actually watching and paying attention to this. This might be my lane now, or was that a different point in your journey?
So I always loved like political philosophy and just like political tactics. And I think what I understood about Bitcoin somewhat relatively early on is that, and actually I heard Michael Saylor say this on the Jordan Peterson podcast, like Bitcoin fundamentally, it's not only a technology, it's not only, money, but it's also an ideology. And if it's an ideology, that means that there's an element to politics to it, right? And if you think about it, right, like Bitcoiners always say, Bitcoin is the separation of money and state. That statement itself is inherently political. So I did a lot of research into just political tactics, and that kind of allowed me to come up with certain phrases that I knew would resonate with people if I said them. And the key to like saying these types of phrases, so the one that I think I'm the most well known for is Bitcoin or slavery, or the other one is like, don't work for money that another man can create for free. The key to those phrases is that they cannot be attacked. If you attack those phrases, you kind of you paint yourself to be a villain, right? So this is what we have to understand, guys, is that like this is a peaceful revolution. This is a pivotal moment in human history. This is a paradigm shift. And once you kind of internalize all those things, it allows you to come up with certain phrases or say things in a certain way that are going to resonate with people. So the TLDR to your question is like, yes, I knew heading in that if I said things a certain way, they were going to get a reaction from the crowd. I just didn't know that the legacy media was going to react to it the way they did.
That's incredible. And I'll be honest, that's a huge inspiration to like what we're doing here. I've been trying to get something to catch on. I don't know if it's done it yet, but one thing I like to say on our show is I always refer to Michael Saylor as our Lord in Saylor. And we even have like a little graphic, because there he is, pesky little guy. You know, hoping those things will catch on. And I'd love to hear that you've not only done that, been able to do it successfully to where other people are really catching on to it. So that's incredible. When you were starting, was there like a first big guest that you landed, or do you remember who that was? And did you feel any imposter syndrome at all once you hit the record button on that one? I know I had that a little when we first had Anthony Scaramucci on and we were like only a month into the show. Was there a moment like that for you?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I still feel like I have imposter syndrome. Me and my co-host, my co-host and co-founder talk about this all the time, where essentially we came to the realization, 2 or 3 years into making Simply, that like, we just looked at ourselves. We're like, dude, like, we're like kind of reporters, bro. And then he would be like, yeah. Because like what would happen was we would do our like usual prep before the show. And what we found is that we were like a week or 2 weeks or sometimes 6 months into news than anyone else. So like now we say tomorrow's Bitcoin news today. And it's not because like we are like geniuses or like because we have a journalistic background or we have any type of formal education. It was just like we were looking at information and we were looking at it from a Bitcoin lens. And because we were looking at a Bitcoin lens, we were able to like kind of connect the dots before, most people would be catching on to it. So like, could you imagine, like, it's like you're more accurate than the guy in the suit on TV on CNBC, and you're just a dude behind a green screen with a microphone that you bought online, like imposter syndrome to the max. And then not to mention, like, once you start getting like, interviews with congressmen and women and senators, you're there and you show up and, I don't have a formal journalistic background. So I don't know how to, talk the way that traditional TV show host talks. So I just talk like myself. And I think there's a power to that because I think people love the authenticity of just being yourself. But yeah, you're there and you're like interviewing a senator and, and you're like, okay, like, what can I say? What can you not say? And, it's crazy once you step into those environments. So yeah, to answer your question, absolutely 1,000,000%. But you just grow into it. And the more you do it, the more comfortable you get, doing it. And it just becomes kind of second nature at this point. Like, it's just like, oh, the camera's on, switch, showtime. Let's go. Bomb, bing, bomb, boom. Let's get some views. Let's get some attention. And let's raise awareness for Bitcoin.
Yeah, and you've kind of, I feel like, at least in the Bitcoin space, kind of cracked the code when it comes to not just attention, but retention, right? And do you chalk that up to your just being your authentic self on camera? I mean, like getting people to watch a full show in the age of 8-second attention spans is tough. And I'm just, asking this for a friend.
Yeah, I mean, so, that's kind of one of the most difficult things as a content creator in the kind of like the modern age, right? Is figuring out how to build an audience. And what I've learned is that there is no shortcuts and you just have to kind of pay your dues. And through a lot of suffering and nights of just banging your head against the wall, eventually you figure it out and it clicks. And you are able to kind of build an audience. And what I will say is, what I tell any of our content creators that are new hires or whatever, and they get frustrated and that they're not getting any views is like, I'm like, dude, look at my first video. We got 50 views on it, 60 views on it. Right. So, and every single tier, I got more and more, I was proud of it. So like my first video hit 100 views, I was super proud. When my second video hit 1,000 views, I was super proud. I remember like when I was like, dude, like we got 100 subscribers in a day. Like, oh my God, like that's crazy. Like, and then you start to normalize it as the, you know, you start to grow and grow and grow and grow. But there are no shortcuts in building an audience, and you kind of learn things. You kind of learn things along the way, and there are no shortcuts. Like it's just you have to pay your dues. You have to suffer, and then eventually, if you stick to it long enough, you will figure it out. That's been my experience so far.
Yeah, I think that's a pretty good lesson for life in general, right? You just got to keep plugging away, and then as things start to click, you have a better idea of how the whole ecosystem works. And that kind of goes with, I mean, in the Bitcoin space specifically, and in Bitcoin media, how do you go about, or how did you go about kind of filtering out the garbage and finding out what the stories were that actually matter to people?
Oh, that's a great question. I mean, yeah, so we just cover what, you know, we find interesting. Like, you know, like we just kind of wake up and then we're like, oh, I think this would, you know, this resonates with me, or this is a cool story. And, you know, we just kind of like focus on that, you know, and I think the key is just to be authentically yourself, right? Like, you know, the more you are yourself, I think the better. I think what I've seen happen over and over again is like people try to be something that they're not, and the internet will sniff that out in 2 milliseconds. And I think the power of the internet versus like kind of legacy media, which I think is just it's just diminishing over time, is like you have like if you like zoom out and you look at who the biggest content creator in the world is at the moment, um it's Mr. Beast or it's Joe Rogan, right? Like it's not CNBC or Fox News or any of the big studios. Like Joe Rogan is getting 13 million views and listens per show. Okay. That is an absurd amount of attention. And this guy is literally just, you know, smoking weed, talking about DMT and elk on his podcast. And he's just 100% himself. And that's his superpower, is that he's just a regular dude just talking about having conversations with really interesting people. So to answer your question, we just talk about things that we find interesting. We're ourselves, and that just resonates with people, I guess.
Yeah, no, I think that sounds like the magic sauce right there. And I would love to know personally, what types of guests on your show do you feel like resonate the most with your audiences and with you? Is it CEOs, plebs, reformed altcoiners, maybe aspiring Bitcoin news pundits with a lot of get up and go? Like, what do you like?
Oh, dude.
Who do your audience?
Then that definitely means we got to get you on the show. I'm gonna get my guy to follow up. But yeah, so that's a great question. So I would say that what we take pride at Simply is like we've always had Bitcoiner, and no one else really does this, but we've always invited Bitcoiners from all walks of life on the live show. Always, right? But we also focus on the heavy hitters as well. So you know, we focus on every single Bitcoiner, whether they're extremely well known, or whether, you know, it's just a pleb that developed this really cool kind of software and he wants to talk about it. You know, we invite everyone, and they get to tell their story, they get to shill their show, or their product or what they're working on, and we give them a platform to do just that.
Yeah. Do you ever feel on your show like a pressure to keep things kind of spicy, even when news cycles are sometimes a bit of a snooze fest? Like we can't count on Trump and Elon to do something outrageous every day. How do you keep things new and fresh for your audiences on the regular?
That's a great question. I mean, like that's, I think, one of the most difficult things. And it's kind of every single week for the last 5 years on Mondays, I'm always like, we're going to have nothing to talk about, because, you know, like, oh my God, what am I going to talk about today? So I think that's just part of, you know, like I said, kind of putting in the hours, putting in the time. and eventually you kind of just get good at connecting the dots between stories, and then connecting it with Bitcoin. And look, like I think the hardest thing to do, in my opinion, is just getting people to care. And I think that is, what you have to kind of figure out as a content creator. Like, how do I get people to care? How do I get people to listen to what I have to say? And then once you start kind of building momentum, the momentum starts to carry itself. Like the snowball starts to carry itself. But that's the hardest part, is starting that snowball effect. Like when we were first starting, like we were thrilled to get, you know, 10 live viewers, and then 20, and then 50. And then like we were over the moon when, we hit 100. We were like, oh my God, there's 100 people watching this. I can't believe this. This is insane. And then, like, but the thing is, what they don't tell you is that your dopamine levels adjust to that. So, if we were getting the live viewers that we got last year, like me and my co-host, we'd probably be on suicide watch, right? Because we'd be like, oh my God, like that was a terrible show. And then looking back for like 3 years ago, if we got the same numbers as we did last year, we would be over the moon. We'd be like, oh my God, this is amazing. Right. So, it is a bit of a dopamine addiction. I'm not going to lie to you. And eventually over time, people start to make the show part of their kind of daily routine. Right. And then that kind of just makes things easier.
Yeah, and that's kind of to your point about like the daily routine. We actually ran an article or a story about, I think it was just yesterday, about how now advertisers are all like spending like, I think it's almost 50% of their budgets now on individual creators like yourself, as opposed to big media outlets, and how there's this huge shift in how media is being consumed and who's being trusted. So if you're able, if I'm a consumer of your content online and I trust you and I like your angle, it's like that's a real easy routine to go to every day, rather it be like this guy isn't being bought by big media or something to say whatever they want him to say. He's saying what matters to him, and I think what matters to him also seems to matter to me. So you're really at like the tip of that spear, which is super exciting. And you mentioned about momentum, right? And this snowball effect that's happening over time. As the Simply Bitcoin snowball continues to evolve, where do you see it headed? Is it going to be kind of Joe Rogan meets Satoshi, or is it more like Bloomberg, but with better memes?
Yeah, I think that's a great question. I mean, look, like I had a dream when I was, early 20s, late teens. I really wanted to be a YouTuber. That was my dream. Um, and I had a choice. Because like what people don't tell you is that it basically takes like at least 2 to 4 years to like actually pick up steam on YouTube. And I did a lot of research like kind of before endeavoring into it. So like I kind of knew what I was getting myself into, and I was doing the math, and I was like, okay, so like by the time like I'm even popping up on people's radars, I'm gonna be, in my late 20s, heading into my 30s. And I was like, am I really gonna make a video game channel? And I'm gonna be playing video games in my late 20s and 30s, and that's what I'm gonna do for a living. And I saw Bitcoin. I was like, but I really like Bitcoin. I like video games. I like Bitcoin. Let me just focus. Let me just do this YouTube channel about Bitcoin instead. And to kind of answer your question, man, I'm just taking it one day at a time. And I'm just like, I can't believe I get to do this for a living. Like this has always been my dream, is like create a YouTube channel, reach 100,000, get the plaque, like, that's always been kind of, like thinking back on it, like maybe I should have dreamed bigger, but that was always my dream. I was like, I always wanted to be a YouTuber. And, yeah, that's, so like, as long as I can keep doing that, and keep making a living and keep making payroll every month and keeping the lights on over here, like, I'm happy with that. And let's see where it takes us.
Heck yeah, man. I mean, honestly, your journey is such like it's a pragmatic and thoughtful and really inspiring thing for so many other people who want to do something similar with their lives. So we really appreciate you sharing that story with us. And in terms of video games, you might be in luck. I'm hearing rumors the new Grand Theft Auto, you might be able to trade stuff on, I think, the Solana network or something, which is wild. And I don't know if it's a good idea, but hey, maybe you could cover both. Before I let you go, Nico, you've been an absolute blast to have on the show today, but I know you got to get going. Our audience, they want to check out Simply Bitcoin. They absolutely should. Where can I send them to learn more about that, listen to your episodes, and learn more about you?
Yeah, just search Simply Bitcoin anywhere, and you'll be able to find us. We have a live show Monday through Friday. It starts at 12:15, and we're dropping kind of original content throughout the day as well, just by different content creators. So you'll have content Monday through Sunday, essentially, and then the live show Monday through Friday. And, we take a entertainment first approach. And, because everyone's talking about like Bitcoin education and, and coverage and whatever, like we just try to make people laugh and enjoy their time. And that's what we try to focus on. So if you want to be entertained by fellow Bitcoiners, check us out at Simply Bitcoin.
Love to hear it, man. You and I are on the same wavelength. Nico Moran, thank you so much for your time, and Simply Bitcoin. Everybody go check it out. We hope to have you back on the show sometime, Nico. It's an open invite. And enjoy the rest of your week, brother. It's been a blast.
Well, thank you so much, bro. I really appreciate you having me on.
Pleasure was all ours. All right, we'll be right back with more Blockchain Report in just a sec. Nico, we'll see you next time. All right, welcome back. Well, that was a fun interview with Nico Moran of Simply Bitcoin. Make sure to check them out, but after our show, of course. Let's jump into this morning's bull run. We got a couple of stories we want to talk about. First, former game show host and current president of the United States, Donald Trump, showed up at the Coinbase State of Crypto Summit and did what he does best, which is declare something big, slap his name on it, and wait for the headlines to follow. And this time, he's the first crypto president, according to Trump. Crypto is no longer in the basement of American policy. It's in the penthouse, baby. He outlined a second-term vision where Bitcoin isn't just tolerated, it's treasured. He blamed the Biden administration, surprise, for starting a regulatory war on crypto, a phrase that sounds dramatic until you realize he might actually have a point. Trump claimed credit for killing Operation Chokepoint 2.0, which was the government's passive-aggressive way of squeezing crypto companies via the banking system. He also took credit for forming the first presidential working group on digital assets, which, yes, sounds totally real and definitely isn't something he made up on the plane. Then came the policy fireworks. Trump announced the U.S. Strategic Bitcoin Reserve like a national oil reserve, but way cooler and harder to drill. He also mentioned the United States Digital Assets Stockpile, which sounds like a Fortnite loot chest for bureaucrats. He appointed Paul Atkins as the new SEC chair, describing him as pro-freedom and pro-innovation, which in DC speak means won't sue Coinbase for existing. And then he teased the Genius Act. Yes, again, that is its actual name, Genius. It's a bill that would support dollar-backed stablecoins, and if the name is any indication, we should fully expect it to be 40% marketing, 30% loopholes, and 100% misunderstood by all of Congress. Trump's speech signaled a total policy pivot from regulation by intimidation to innovation by legislation. So whether or not you love this guy, this much is clear. A U.S. president, a standing president, mind you, is on stage and treating Bitcoin like it belongs to the next dollar. That, my friends, is bullish no matter who you end up voting for. And if these policies move forward, Bitcoin's price could certainly follow, not because Trump loves crypto, but because markets love clarity. And this, my friends, was crystal. And it turns out the U.S. Senate is once again worried that Mark Zuckerberg might be trying to financialize your aunt's Facebook recipes. This time, it's over that whole Genius Act thing, of course, the new payment stablecoin bill that's cruising through Congress with bipartisan support and all the subtlety of a drunk toddler on a Roomba. Two senators, Elizabeth Warren and Richard Blumenthal, sent Zuck a sharply worded letter, which in D.C. terms means they're this close to calling him a Bond villain. They basically asked, hey Mark, quick question. Are you quietly influencing the biggest stablecoin bill in America so you can sneak your own surveillance token back into the market? Oh, and also, are you about to mint MetaBucks and turn every Instagram DM into a ledger entry? Now, if this feels like deja vu, it's because, well, it is. See, Meta already tried this with Libra and then Diem, and both ended up in the regulatory trash pile faster than your uncle's Pepe NFT collection. But now, with Trump allegedly having the power to issue waivers under the Genius Act, the senators are sweating the idea that Meta could skip the rules while everyone else registers with 3 federal agencies, gets audited by the IRS, and has to explain what a stablecoin is to someone named Carol in compliance. Now, the senators' biggest fear is that if Meta controls a stablecoin, it could, in fact, track every transaction, monetize every micro-behavior, and use that data to sell you targeted ads for colon supplements 10 minutes after you Google fiber. Now, to be fair, Meta's official stance, as of May, is there is no Meta stablecoin, which is about as comforting as when a toddler says, I didn't touch anything, right after you hear glass shattering in the background. Now, the real kicker here is that Meta might not launch their own coin. They might just integrate other stablecoins like USDT or USDC across their own platforms. So we're talking Facebook, Instagram, WhatsApp, Messenger, Threads, basically every place your boomer relatives, exes, and high school gym teachers still go to post. So, sure, Meta might not be printing the money, but they might be moving it, tracking it, tokenizing your group chat arguments, and monetizing your mom's side hustle. Meanwhile, the Genius Act is marching toward a full vote with bipartisan support, so strong you'd think it was renaming a post office. And if Meta gets a special waiver to play banker while everyone else gets regulatory colonoscopies, that, my friends, is not innovation. That's regulatory cosplay with Zuckerberg in the lead role. And Bitcoin may be cooling off under its 111K all-time high, but sentiment, well, it's heating up faster than a Solana validator before a network outage. Since topping out at 11.9K in late May, Bitcoin has been trading sideways between 105 and 110, but here's the thing, it hasn't dipped below 100K, not even once. That floor is holding like a degen's grip on their favorite meme coin. And now the vibes are bullish again. Social sentiment is rising. Retail chatter is overwhelmingly positive with a 2-to-1 ratio of happy posts to doom scrolling, according to Sentiment. Even the laser-eyed Bitwise CEO, Hunter Horsley, is chiming in. What a great name that is. Hunter's take, well, once Bitcoin clears 130K to 150K, no one, and he means no one, is going to want to sell. It's a bold claim, but not without some merit. I mean, on-chain data shows that long-term hodlers have been selling a bit at 100K. I mean, you can't really blame them considering they bought back when Bitcoin cost less than brunch. But while some are cashing out, exchange balances are still dropping, which means that fewer coins are available for everyone else. So basic supply and demand says fewer sellers plus growing demand equals higher prices. And that's not hopium, that's Econ 101. And what happens when people think about Bitcoin's about to explode? Well, we enter the pre-sale carnival, and leading the juggernaut parade is Bitcoin Hyper. It's the self-proclaimed first Bitcoin Layer 2 using the Solana virtual machine. Because apparently nothing screams fast, reliable, and scalable quite like bolting Solana's engine onto the Bitcoin chassis. The idea here? You deposit your Bitcoin to a relay address. It gets wrapped, and now you can play DeFi games and mint meme coins on Hyper's own Layer 2. It's trustless, it's ZK rollup equipped, and allegedly ready to scale Bitcoin like it's Ethereum in 2021, minus, the gas fees and all the rage tweets. Hyper promises low fees, staking rewards at suspiciously high 647% APY, developer bounties, and of course, early pre-sale pricing. So far, it's raised over $1.1 million, and at 0.01185 per token, they're predicting a price of 0.0259 by year's end, which would be like a 118% gain, which is kind of oddly specific, which is usually a big red flag. Now, to be clear, though, the Layer 2 narrative for Bitcoin is very real. There's an actual need to scale Bitcoin smart contracts and enable faster, cheaper transactions. But attaching that dream to a pre-sale that's also a token launch, that's also staking a pool, that's also a VC moon mission, that's where skepticism kicks in. Because if we're calling this the best pre-sale of 2025, we should at least pause and remember how many best pre-sales were forgotten by February of 2024. Now that said, Bitcoin Layer 2s are coming, and whether it's Hyper or something else entirely, the market is hungry. The tools that make Bitcoin actually usable, beyond just sitting in cold storage like a digital dragon hoard, they'll win. So watch this space. Buy the pre-sale if you're feeling a little spicy. But know this, Bitcoin doesn't need a Layer 2 hype machine to prove itself. It is the layer. Everything else, well, it's still auditioning. All right, we're moving to bullish, bearish, and BS, so let's move the stinger, boys, and get this going. All right, my friends, it's time for a little bullish, bearish, or BS. This is the part of the show where we go through the top stories of today's show and decide if it's good for Bitcoin, bad for Bitcoin, or just meh. Again, we have Coinbase's State of Crypto Summit. At it, Trump went full infomercial. He was unveiling a pro-Bitcoin second-term vision, complete with a strategic Bitcoin reserve, a new SEC chair who won't sue Coinbase for existing, and a bill called the Genius Act, because of course it is. I'm bullish on this. I mean, love him or hate him, Trump gave Bitcoin a seat at the presidential table, and markets love clear pro-crypto policy even more than campaign theatrics. So I'm bullish on that. Next up, we have Elizabeth Warren and Richard Blumenthal sent Zuck a stern letter asking if Meta is quietly pushing its own stablecoin under the radar, or worse, using the Genius Act to skip the rules and launch a data harvesting digital dollar. I'm bearish on this. If Meta sidesteps regulation, expect backlash. It could spook lawmakers into tightening the noose, and that regulatory chill could spill into broader crypto markets, Bitcoin included. I'm bearish on that. Last one, we have Bitcoin's holding firm at 105K while social sentiment spikes, exchange balances drop, and Bitcoin Hyper, a Solana-powered Layer 2 with crazy APYs rockets through pre-sale. I'm bullish on this. I mean, the vibes are strong, hodlers are hoarding, and retail is waking up. Even if Hyper sounds like a Vegas slot machine, the demand to scale Bitcoin is real, and the market's really feeling it. So today, 2 bullish, 1 bearish, which means today we are wrapping up the week on a very bullish sentiment. Presidents are pumping. Sentiment is roaring. Oh, there it is. Toro! And the weird altcoins are waking up. Let's see if price follows the energy. Thanks as always for watching the Blockchain Report. Make sure to like, follow, and subscribe to RoxomTV and me at Hank at RoxomTV on all platforms. And I will see you, D-Gens, next Monday for more Blockchain Report. Have a great weekend. See you Monday.